Look, Bumble knows you're exhausted by dating. All the, must not take yourself too seriously, and 6'1" since that matters. And what do I even say other than, hey? Well, that's why they're introducing an all-new Bumble, with exciting features to make compatibility easier, starting the chat better, and dating safer. They've changed, so you don't have to. Download the new Bumble now.
I hope that Elsa's story inspires us to care for and protect our marvelous oceans and creatures. So much of it's still unknown, and it's really so much to protect there. And the scientist Edith Witter said she believes people need to learn about how magnificent the ocean and the creatures are to want to protect them. So I'm hoping this is a type of book that will lead our children to want to be environmentalists and care for the ocean.
Hey everyone, I'm Bianca Schulze from the Children's Book Review, and this is the Growing Readers Podcast. Our guest today is author Jeanne Walker Harvey, whose new picture book biography, Elsae B in the Sea, The Woman Who Painted the Wonders of the Deep, explores the life and work of artist Else Bostelmann. Jeanne is the author of several acclaimed picture books, including Boats on the Bay, as well as the celebrated picture book biographies Ablaze with Color, a story of painter Alma Thomas, and Maya Lin, artist, architect of light and lines. In the 1930s, Else Bostelmann courageously ventured deep into the ocean near Bermuda in a copper diving helmet to paint the magnificent sea creatures and bioluminescent fish that scientist William Beebe was discovering on his expeditions. Her stunning artwork, published in National Geographic, gave the public a first glimpse of a strange, beautiful underwater world never seen before. Jeanne is here to discuss how Elsa's vibrant paintings at the intersection of art and science helped bring attention to these groundbreaking deep-sea discoveries. She'll also share insights into her meticulous research process, working with illustrator Melody Stacy to vividly bring Elsa's story to life on the page, and what she hopes young readers take away from this inspiring tale of creativity, curiosity, and conversation. Please join me in welcoming Jeanne Walker Harvey, joining us from her home in Sonoma, California. But first, here's the synopsis for Elsae B in the Sea, The Woman Who Painted the Wonders of the Deep. Elsae B in the Sea is a poetic picture book biography about a daring and pioneering woman artist that combines themes of art and science, from author Jeanne Walker Harvey and illustrator Melody Stacy. Else Bostelmann donned a red swimsuit and a copper diving helmet and, with paints and brushes in hand, descended into the choppy turquoise sea off the coast of Bermuda. It was 1930, and few had ventured deep into the sea before. She discovered a fairyland 6 fathoms below the surface. Fantastic coral castles, glittering sunbeams, swaying sea plumes, and slender purple sea fans. And fish. Flashy silverfish, puckering blue parrotfish, iridescent jellyfish. Elsa painted under the sea. She painted what she saw with her own eyes, and back on land, she painted the never-before-seen deep-sea creatures described by world-renowned scientist William Beebe on his momentous 1930s bathysphere expeditions for the New York Zoological Society's Department of Tropical Research. It was a daring and glamorous adventure and a dream come true for Elsae B, who shared this new, unfathomable world with humankind. Well, hello, Jeanne. Welcome back to the Growing Readers podcast. I am so happy to discuss your new picture book biography, which is Elsae B in the Sea, the woman who painted the wonders of the deep. But before we jump right into the book, or I should say dive right into the book and your writing, have you been up to anything exciting since we last spoke in person about Ablaze with Color, which, if you can believe, was back in 2022?
I know, that's amazing. But first of all, Bianca, thank you so much for inviting me back to the Children's Book Review. You are just such an amazing podcaster, reviewer, supporter of Kid Lit Extreme. So big, heartfelt virtual hugs. And it really makes such a difference in our world when we receive so much support from people like you. And I love your podcast. So
you just made me blush.
So Ablaze with Color. Actually, it's pretty exciting because the Washington, D.C. Library Foundation has selected it for its spring featured book for all the libraries, and they're buying so many copies to give out for free to patrons. And the idea of more children and families being able to read the book, and especially in Washington, D.C., where she painted and lived and taught. So that's extremely exciting and such an honor.
Wow, that is amazing. And I love seeing Love is Wise's book cover popping up on social media all of the time. Like it's been a constant. It's always been in the front. And I love that you always do such a good job of working with people behind the scenes to create such amazing resources to pair with the book. I mean, the educator's guide and the activity kit for that book were so phenomenal. So I just love that people are really receiving that book, and amazing that so many kids are going to receive that book for free.
It's thrilling. Yes. And thank you, Bianca. I love working as a team on the resources and the backup material, because it does make a difference. As having taught for a bit and as a parent, I know that when you have extra material to share and learn from the book, it makes such a difference.
I just have to ask this question, because I feel like I did ask you this in 2022, but is there anything fun that you do in your day-to-day practices just to kind of get you warmed up and ready for writing?
So my cat and I dance around a lot.
Right.
And because I just love, I think with a dance class, I find that I have to concentrate so much on the move so that I don't fall over, that then I can't think about anything else. Whereas it's great to go for a walk or a hike, and I do that often too. But then I start thinking about things. This is a way that I totally can't think about anything else. And then I feel like I have a fresh start when I look at the words again.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is it a specific style of dance, or do you like a variety?
I love Zumba. So obviously it's not to be shared in public, but I just think it's really a fun, and the teachers are always so positive. So it's, a salsa and just spice it up. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like it's all coming back to me. I feel like we absolutely talked about that last time, and it is for the public. Don't be afraid to share those moves, Jeanne.
Maybe in a big group, in a dark club.
Yeah. There you go. All right, well, talk to me about your cat. What's your cat's name?
Her name is Allie, and because I lived in Sausalito by San Francisco on an alley. And so she's my alley cat that I adopted when she was just 1 year old. And she is definitely my writing companion and lets me know when I've been sitting too long, and will paw my face because she likes to go outside. So, pet pals are great.
I knew you were in the San Francisco area, but we must have almost been neighbors at some point, because I used to live in San Anselmo in the Marin County area.
Yes.
And I loved wandering down the streets of Sausalito.
Great.
All right. Well, let's dive into the book. So I love that you focused on a woman that many people will not have heard of, despite her incredible contributions to some really major scientific discoveries. So can you start by telling us a bit about Else Bostelmann and why you were drawn to share her story?
I read an article, and I'm always just diving deep into as many resources as I can to find these interesting, inspiring people that we should know about. And particularly, I like creative people. And this story really drew me in because it's a classic STEAM story with the science, as you mentioned, plus the art. And Elsa was born in 1882 in Germany. And when she came to the US, she married an American. Her husband decided he wanted to be a farmer in Texas. So they went there for a couple of years. Tragically, he died probably from overexertion and not knowing how to be a farmer. And so she had a young child. So when she went back to New York, she had to find jobs using her talent as a fine artist, which she had studied and won awards in Germany. But she really wanted to do nature painting. That was her passion from the get-go. And when she heard about William Beebe's expeditions, he was going all over the world, but at this point he was headed to Bermuda in the 1930s to explore off the coast of Bermuda. And she apparently walked in with her drawings and paintings. And maybe I didn't put it in the book because it's not confirmed, but there were a couple people that said she just walked in and said, I really want this job. So she was almost 50 years old. And think about that time in the 1930s, how many women were doing something like that, and said, I want to be your expeditions artist. So it was quite a bold, adventuresome thing. So I think she seems like she was kind of a rock star in that world.
I love that when we're writers, there's always a piece of us, at least in fiction, somewhat hidden in the characters or the intention behind the story. So I wonder what it is about yourself, and I don't know if you've stopped to think about this, that you felt really driven or connected to Elsa. Like what part of you was it that wanted to tell her story?
What a great question. And I really haven't thought about it. But now thinking about it, it really resonates that she at 50 would go on such an adventure. I just went with my family, my sons, their girlfriends, my partner to Costa Rica for the first time last month. And that was an adventure for me because I tend to not do crazy things, but we went on an insane whitewater rafting trip. And that was the best burrito I've ever eaten afterwards because I lived. I think the idea that Else Bostelmann was willing to don a copper helmet before scuba diving was invented and go off the boat into the water so that she could experience it herself and then repeatedly go down there and paint with just this tube of air up to the boat was really amazing for this woman who was not someone who was an adventurer at all. So that's a really fun question. I had not thought of that.
It kind of leads into my next question, which is one of the things that really stood out to me was Elsa's bravery and that pioneering spirit and donning that clunky hat in the 1930s, as you said. I mean, that's incredible to paint these beautiful wonders of the deep sea that she was discovering. So what did you hope to convey about Elsa's character and her achievements through the book?
I really hope that children will pursue their passions and interests, even though there will be challenges and setbacks, and they will be afraid because we all have been afraid of doing something new or scary or something that others say, you can't do that. That's never been done, or you shouldn't do that. And also the idea that one person can make such a difference in these major discoveries that we hear about the main person, such as William Beebe, who was the scientist that led these expeditions, but without Else Bostelmann's paintings, which were published in National Geographic for the whole world to get to experience the deep, dark, bioluminescent creatures and a whole strange new world like space is to us, in the 60s and now still, she makes such a difference that I want children to realize any person can make a difference behind the scenes. So everyone's contributions are important in any way.
As you said, the book highlights how Elsa's artwork helped bring attention to the groundbreaking deep sea expeditions led by scientist William Beebe. So can you share more about the intersection of art and science in Elsa's work?
Yes. So she was, as I said, a fine artist. So she could paint such beautiful, detailed paintings, which were very important because she and William Beebe wanted to portray these incredible deep sea fish, many of which had never been seen before. And it was before photography. So the science part of it is she would get out a microscope and carefully look at each fish that had been trawled from the depths of the ocean. But also he would describe in detail what he had seen. So they would, in conjunction, she'd be able to try to convey every little fin and where every part of the fish existed underwater, which wasn't easy because by the time it comes, through the pressure of the ocean, they don't look the same as the beauty and magnificence underwater. So in the back matter, we've included a section on the underwater color spectrum, because as she went underwater painting herself, she noticed certain colors faded, such as red, her red bathing suit. Talk about bioluminescence, that science, which is so fascinating to me, and the chemical reactions. And something I hope children will read that section and say, oh, I want to learn more about that. So I had seen that first, bioluminescence, when I was sailing with a friend that I actually just saw up in Puget Sound and, back in high school. And we had seen the magic shimmering behind the boat. And that memory just stands with me. So it's very exciting, the idea that this book is art and science.
When you were describing how she would look at the fish under the microscope, I immediately just thought of the illustrations, because there's this great illustration of Elsa literally creating art as she's looking at a fish under the microscope. So let's talk a little bit about the artwork. Or we can talk a lot about the artwork too. It doesn't have to be a little bit. Because the illustrations by Melody Stacy in this book are so stunning, and they really do transport the reader into the underwater world that Elsa explored. So talk to me about the way Melody brings Elsa's story to life and what her artwork means to you when you look at this book.
Just as you said, it is stunning. I mean, it's just all the details and magnificent colors and the richness of the scenes that she paints, the fairyland aspect, just as way beyond what I could have even envisioned. And she is a fine artist, so she painted with. I'm going to get the exact words. She painted with gouache, watercolor, pastels, and colored pencils. So she was really using, the wonderful art materials, just as Else Bostelmann did also. And Melody was so careful in her research also, which is so important to me. She even looked for what did the tugboat look like? And she found a photo of that. And there's a photo she found of what would people wear in different eras. And, these details make such a difference. And because I care so much that that my books our books are as accurate as possible, because children are sponges and this is what they're absorbing. And I want them to absorb facts and actual. But the magic of illustrations in picture books, I feel just beyond lucky to get to write picture books, because I love art and I love illustrations, and I can't do it at all. It would be stick figures. So her ability to paint these incredible illustrations is so appreciated.
you and I know, and probably most of our listeners know, that the authors and illustrators of picture books don't often meet or chat. And I love it when someone hears that for the first time. They're like, what? The author and the illustrator don't chat? But, sometimes they do. So I was wondering if you know about any of the pressures that Melody might have felt when she was creating the art, because I imagine that when you're creating free art, that's very freeing. But when you're creating art that is almost is honoring another artist, I mean, that must be extra pressure.
I think you're exactly right. I think she lives in the UK. I did send to her the 2 original National Geographic magazines in which Elsa's paintings and William Beebe's words were printed. And she wrote me the nicest email in the midst of the illustration process, which, as you said, we're usually supposed to not communicate. But she said that she was pretty confident that her grandfather would have seen these exact National Geographics because he subscribed and always read all of them, and this would have been during his era, and that seemed really touching too. That maybe that connection with another generation. So as far as accuracy, I sent her as many photos as I could because she said, I want to paint this as accurately as possible, and she did. I mean, and beyond. So it was a little tricky with the color spectrum, as I said, because she had such vivid colors in the underwater magical scene. But I discussed with my editor, who passed it on to the art director, who passed it on to her. As you said, we don't talk directly, that the red suit of Elsa needed to be much more muted to convey how she was seeing the world underwater.
How did you find the National Geographics? Are they easy to track down?
Oh, I love finding anything it's like being a detective. No, they weren't that easy to track down, especially 2 copies, because I wanted one set for me and one set for her. And then to look at it, there's lots of old ads, and just you get a flavor of that era. And compared to the other articles in the National Geographic, those editions, one realizes it must have been amazing to see Else Bostelmann's beautiful paintings of these creepy, weird-looking fish, that it'd be as if someone said, well, we saw these Martians up in space when we went up there. So it's pretty magical. But I love digging for research, or, it's also another thing I don't have to write. I get to spend a lot of time looking for things, and sometimes that's a nice break.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to ask, do you have a favorite illustration?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's so tough for me. I guess the cover is amazing. Just she's in that fairyland and actually sitting and painting. Just it's such a wild concept, and she did it so perfectly because it shows her not painting it as not accurately, but as detailed as what she saw. Because when she was painting underwater, it was more to get a sense of the color palette. And so I love that one. And then the creepy fish one. They're just, and with these, great names that are so just perfect, what they called them then, like the great gulper eel or the saber-tooth viper fish. I mean, I can just see kids, especially my son, when he was a little boy, I read every night for a long time, Strange Sea Creature book until the book was falling apart. And I didn't find it all that interesting, but he loved it. So I dedicated the book to my 2 sons and our adventures. And when my son saw this page, he thought, because it's a different type of art too. It's not the pretty type. It's more scientific, but kind of exciting.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the page you just finished off saying that you love, because that's my favorite spread. I just love that it's this double page spread. It's the deep blue ocean and the texture that Melody has given to the ocean. It has movement, and then all the different animals on them. She's made them with the bioluminescence sort of glow around it, but it's so subtle and magical. And then I love the little like cursive scientific names next to each fish. And then, as you just said, there's the list of clearly very easy to read of these really cool names. And so I loved that spread too.
Oh, that's great to hear.
All right. So I have to ask you then, since we said favorite illustration, are there any particular lines or text in the story that you feel most proud of, or that you'd even be willing to read aloud?
So my wonderful editor, Amy Noveski, had the idea once she saw the beginning of my book that which I'll read a little bit. The first time Elsae B climbed down the long metal ladder dangling off the boat into the ocean by Bermuda, her hands trembled. It was 1930, and few had ventured deep into the sea before. Elsa, who loved to paint the natural world, had only dreamed of such an adventure. She felt a frisson of fear. And I love that my editor, Amy, let me keep frisson, because obviously it's a word that children won't know, but hopefully they will, and then they'll be using it all over the place. And it's always nice to be able to complete the loop of a story. And at the last page, this was Amy's idea to ask Melody to, well, I guess first I wrote it, but that to be ascending up into the boat to leave Bermuda. So we descend, she descends and then ascends. And the last paragraph, all because Elsae B dared to take those first steps down the ladder and into the deep, dark sea. And it's just, when I saw her, see, this is another amazing illustration. I can't pick. The idea that she has New York City, because that's where she went back to, behind her with the stars glimmering, and then two children reading National Geographic and the fish diving into it, and their experience the world, all because Elsae B dared to do the adventure and paint these wonderful paintings.
The publisher's book summary describes this story as poetic, and I feel like what you just picked demonstrates why the word poetic is a great way to describe your writing for this story. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so of course, I loved the back matter, and you've touched on the back matter. So it has your author's note, which I feel as though really gives a lot of, you did such a great job of such a concise little author's note, but it provides so much more context to why this story is powerful. And it just sort of demonstrates why it's a great women's history story. It's empowering. There's also the scientific information that you said. So another large word that kids might not know is fathoms, and what a fathom is. And so you've described, I'm not even going to try and explain it right now, but fathom, if you want to know what a fathom is, that's in the back matter. And then of course, I love that you have your list of selected sources. So talk to me about the kind of research that you did do for this book. And I know you've touched on it a little bit, but then also how you decided what to actually put in the back matter.
Oh, great question. So I always seek primary sources for my picture book biographies, which sometimes I will pick a topic and find I can't find enough about that person. And so I need to set it aside. And for this one, I was so lucky because Else Bostelmann herself is not famous and does not have a lot of information about her, but she did write some articles about her adventure herself. And the amazing research librarians at the Library of Congress helped me find those articles, which were in Christian Science Monitor and Country Life. And these are back in the 1935, 1939, and they found them. And with her words, I was able to create so much of the depth of the story. William Beebe has written a great deal and talks about her, so that could verify some of the facts. And then I was inspired to write the book because I read an article, as I mentioned, that was written by Dr. Edith Witter, who's an amazing oceanographer who has done TED Talks about bioluminescence, which are fascinating. So she was a tough one to find enough details, but I think we nailed it as far as with the help of these amazing research librarians.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's a great side tab right now, and not even necessarily a side tab, but I think there's probably people listening that would love to know how you go about approaching librarians and getting their help and how to tap into that. And then also, I lived in Washington, D.C. for quite a few years, and I am so mad at myself that I have never visited the Library of Congress, and I don't know why. So anyway.
Well, because you live there. Whenever we live somewhere, we don't go to what's right there. The Library of Congress is amazing. I actually got to do a talk there, a reading for my Maya Lin book. And it's and I got a Library of Congress card and everything. And I love my library cards. And I think as far as the Library of Congress, researching them, as you said, anyone, all of you should just type in a question into the website and you'll get back these amazing, if it's not the right department, they'll send it to another department and they'll send back, suggestions and maybe ask you questions of, do you want more about this? It's just incredible resource right at our fingertips. And so you don't even need to go to the Library of Congress.
That's incredible. I actually did not know that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's such a helpful tip. And yeah, I mean, we just need to support our libraries and show up too. We need them and they need us to show up for them too. So
yeah, especially during these times, librarians are superstars, what they have to endure right now. So yes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, what do you think was the most unexpected fact or piece of information that you came across when you were doing your research?
I thought it was fun. Of course, didn't put it in there that these scientists would give parties on the island. They would I think I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but it was just such a fun thing to envision them all celebrating when they made discoveries. And it was so dangerous, this bathysphere. They could have, and when one reads William Beebe's accounts of it, the whole thing could have just blown up. There was sometimes water coming into it. So I think that sense of living at an adventure. And for her, I don't think she was quite the partier they were, but I think she, from one little blurb I read, that she thoroughly enjoyed. It was just such a different world for her than what she had experienced being part of a scientific expedition.
Well, is there a question that you wish that I had asked you about Elsae B and the sea that I haven't asked you yet?
Maybe that, what do I think children, as far as reading this book, would want to do as far as with the ocean? I mean, how does it impact their view of the ocean? I guess it's that this was the end of my author's note. I hope that Elsa's story inspires us to care for and protect our marvelous oceans and creatures. So much of it's still unknown, and it's really so much to protect there. And the scientist Edith Witter said she believes people need to learn about how magnificent the ocean and the creatures are to want to protect them. So I'm hoping this is a type of book that will lead our children to want to be environmentalists and care for the ocean. And there's a lot of scientists who actually I've read about who saw Elsae Bostelman's children's illustrations in National Geographic and were inspired to become oceanographers. So I would love it if there'd be some future oceanographers out there, environmentalists.
That's really cool. I know, because it's so easy, even to just, I know not everybody has the opportunity to go to an ocean or has been to the ocean, but anybody who has been to the ocean, when you walk down there, it's so easy to just look out at the horizon and just be like, this is so peaceful, which it is. But sometimes I think it's so good to stop and think about more than that, like stop and notice what's beneath the ripples, what's going on down there. And so I think this book is something that does that. It really opens up your eyes to what is beneath the ocean. And there's so much crazy stuff down there.
I love that. That's so well said. Right. We do. You're right. We always talk about the sunset over the ocean, but there's a whole world underneath, obviously. It's a vast space.
What do you hope that young readers will take away beyond just what you said? So I think that was incredible to learn to be stewards of the ocean and to dive deeper into what's beneath there and possibly even inspire young artists. Is there anything else you want them to take away?
Pay attention to what interests you. What's the passions? Because I do believe with all of us, things that we're interested in as children burble up into our lives later. And if people pay attention to that, then that might be an interest that they follow. And I do believe everyone is creative in whatever way of the way of not only just in the writing and art and music and dance, but just the creative ways of looking at the world and being an inventor, an explorer, a thinker. So I'd love for them to know every person is creative. I do believe that.
I understand that you have another book coming, which is The Glass Pyramid. I think it comes out in 2025, and it explores, and I don't have a French accent, so sorry, it explores the Louvre Museum and architect I.M. Pei. And I have to say, I live near Boulder, Colorado, and I.M. Pei did the, I'm going to say it wrong, National Center for Atmospheric Research. There you go. We call it NCAR. So I had to think about what the acronym stood for. So anyway, can you give us a sneak peek into this book?
Sure. And I'm so envious you live near that. I'm trying to see as many I.M. Pei buildings as I can. I remember visiting the pyramid, the glass pyramid, and just thinking it was the most miraculous building. He had such a great sense of, and I love modern art and modern design, but it complements the historic museum facade so nicely. So it's being published by Athenaeum, Simon & Schuster, and illustrated by Kwa Lei, who has just gorgeous illustrations. I've seen sketches so far, nothing in color, but the detail of her line drawings and then the swirling, I can imagine there would be great colors given her other books. And Christy Choi is editing, and she's always so, that someone said to edit is divine. And I think it's true, because they can just give you just a little nudge or that tiny bit of an idea, or how about maybe changing the order or something like that bring the magic to the whole process. But anyway, the book is about I.M. Pei's challenges, because he was a Chinese American, not French. And the idea that anyone was going to touch anything involving the Louvre was not acceptable to the French. But he persevered. A lot of it was his upbringing with his being very calm, patient. I think it will inspire children that when you have an idea, sometimes you have to be willing to persist and withstand a lot of criticism. And now, of course, they love it, and everyone in the world loves it. So thank goodness he didn't back down.
I mean, I love France. I have this dream of living in the south of France someday, and I love Paris. And so I can't wait for this book. I've been to and I'm not going to say it right, so you can all tisk at me, but I've been to the Louvre Museum and I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to read your book. I want to tie it back to Elsae B and the Sea real quick, because you just said something to me, with IMP being sort of calm, and I guess I got this real mindful feeling. And so I think when people think of the ocean and the deepness of it, it can feel really overwhelming. And I love the ocean. I grew up by the ocean. I swim in the ocean, but I also have this fear. And so I like to snorkel, but the idea of diving like Elsae B completely freaks me out. And I've decided that it's because I have a busy brain. And I think when you go down under the ocean, it's almost like the world stops and you have to become part of what is existing down there, and everything about you disappears. And I find that really overwhelming. And so
you're so right, though. The first time I snorkeled, I was amazed that it was so quiet all of a sudden, that all the sounds of everyone out in the water and the boat nearby, it just was quiet. And there is an eeriness to that. It's a beauty, but it's just like meditation is challenging to me, because I too have a busy mind, which is why I need to do something like dancing and to be in the moment. And yes, you're absolutely right.
Can you imagine 1930s Elsae B down in the deep ocean with this giant copper helmet on? I mean, the peace and the level of mindfulness that she must have had was it must have been top notch.
Absolutely. And I don't even know if I couldn't find ever that she even visited a beach before that. And she was just so focused on, I will learn what is under the ocean so that I can paint it and convey to William Beebe when we talk about colors, what we're seeing. Yeah, amazing.
So cool. Well, Jeanne, thank you so much for coming on the show today to share Elsae B and the Sea, the woman who painted the wonders of the deep. I know that it's going to create curiosity about what's beneath the surface of the water, and hopefully it will inspire so many kids to want to care for and protect our amazing oceans and creatures. So thank you so much for writing another beautiful biography.
Oh, thank you so much, Bianca, for inviting me. And I loved our discussion. You always ask such great questions and send me thinking of connections I've never even thought about. So thank you so much. And your podcast is amazing. So I really appreciate all you do.
Thank you so much, Jeanne.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us on this quest for growing readers. Be sure to check out our show notes, where you'll find links to order copies of Elsae B in the Sea, the woman who painted the wonders of the sea, by Jeanne Walker Harvey. You can follow Jeanne and her work on her website at jeanneharvey.com. Remember, if you enjoy listening to the Growing Readers podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to your podcasts. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform to get new episodes as soon as they're released. If you're enjoying our book discussions, please take a moment to leave us a review. And while you're at it, grab your phone to text a friend and share this episode with someone you know will appreciate this conversation. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep growing. The Growing Readers podcast is a production of the Children's Book Review. To discover more fantastic books like Elsae B in the Sea, I encourage you to visit us at thechildrensbookreview.com.